Cumberland traffic, 10.404, uniform, parting 11, glider.
Because once you go into the Truckee Bowl and you can't get out of it, it's only trees and the lake. That's literally it.
Maybe the strangest thing or the strangest feeling I had was when I saw my friend on a parachute in the middle of a huge thermal with nearly 30 gliders.
I mean, we basically had to stay high and soar all the way till we were almost on top of Crete.
Yeah, you absolutely have to. I mean, there's the only airport to the north is Gunnison, and that gets pretty far away if you're only at those altitudes.
That was our only out.
All of the different types of gliders, from the single-seaters to the tandem gliders up to the 20-meter, as they were getting them placed in the grid for their takeoffs. So standing at the back of the grid was quite amazing, just to see all the long wings out.
This is Soaring the Sky, a glider pilot's podcast, coming to you from the Mid-Atlantic region here in the United States, and bringing you great soaring content from glider pilots all over the globe. We now join Chuck and Barbara, the gliding junkie, and our new guest pilot.
I really do believe that everything that ends needs to be celebrated with the same energy and joy of when it began. This podcast, throughout its history, has interviewed pilots from so many different parts of the world, sharing so many different experiences that will remain valuable for years to come and become one of the best registers of the world's gliding scene this past few years. Having such a podcast running for so long might have let us used to it, but not long ago, finding resources or anything else related to soaring was kind of confined to magazines and books, and there are not so many of them. The idea of a YouTube gliding channel or even of a soaring podcast bringing pilots together for a chat with worldwide coverage was inconceivable. Being the first to do that puts Soaring the Sky podcast in gliding history.
Hello, Barbara, the gliding junkie here. Just as Sergio, I would like to thank you, Czech, for letting me be a part of your gliding podcast. I love talking about gliding and everything related to it, but also listening to all the episodes you brought to us was a blast. Connecting people is very important for any sport, hobby, or interest. And with the Soaring the Sky podcast, I felt like the community was growing stronger. We all get to the part in our lives when we have to choose what we invest our precious time in this world in. And I'd like to thank you, Chuck, that you not only invested your time into the podcast, but also a huge part of your heart. To all the listeners of this very last episode, I'd like to motivate you all to put your heart into everything you enjoy doing, because that's the only time when you may touch someone else's heart and it may motivate others to do the same. Our sport is full of great people who put everything into gliding and keep the greatest hobby of all time alive. Enjoy all of your flights. I wish everybody the very best of luck with your gliding goals. And if you want to keep sharing, you know where to find me on Instagram. I don't think it is necessary to be sad that Soaring the Sky podcast ends, but we should be happy that Soaring the Sky podcast even happened. And who knows, maybe there will be more people in the future who will have the passion to start a project like this. And that is your contribution to the sport, Chuck. Thank you for that, and I wish you all the best in the future too.
We were talking about Cumberland Soaring Group, and he knew of the group, and I was telling him about my Schweitzer 119. I said, maybe you'll see it up on the ridge sometime. It's all yellow. And with that, the young lady, and I don't remember their names anymore, she spoke up, and she said, back in the fall, were you flying your glider maybe one day? And I said, yeah, several times. It was a yellow glider, and it's open cockpit. And I said, yeah. We were having a picnic, and there was a lot of wind in the ridge, so it was hard to hear because the trees being, the wind and the leaves, the wind noise. And I guess her hearing was better than her boyfriend's, because her comment to me was, "Do you have a horn in your glider?" And it really tickled me that she asked me, because I had a routine when I'd come across the club for landing, I would blow my horn. But my buddies, Tim Long and those older members, as soon as I land, "Could you hear my horn?" And they would always deny it. And I always figured they were ribbing me. So this young lady said, "I could hear a horn blowing." And I laughed and I said, "As a matter of fact, I do have an old bicycle horn in my glider." "And you heard it?" She said, "Yes." And she said, "But my boyfriend couldn't hear it." And it went on a while and we kept hearing you. And finally he looked at me and he said, "Gliders don't have horns." And it just really tickled me.
The Dust Devil Dash is a one-day, old-school, free distance contest. It's not a race. It's whoever goes the furthest in any direction from Mountain Valley Airport in Tehachapi, from a single toe to 3,500 feet AGL. And the competition is handicapped, so any sailplane can enter, and your distance is multiplied by your U.S. system handicap, your Herald handicap number. Any glider can enter, and in fact, 126s have one, and ASW 29s have one. It doesn't make a lot of difference how high the performance of your glider is, except for specific Dust Devil dashes, depending on the weather. Some years the weather favors a high-performance glider, and some years it favors a low-performance glider.
You know, I think there's something in most of us that want to fly, and you know, I know for me it's something I've dreamed about, and you know, even before I was ever flying, and it just keeps driving me. You know, every time I haven't been flying for a month or more or whatever, I just, you know, think back to my flights where I pull up some videos. That's nice, and look at some old flights, and it just gets me fired right back up and ready to go again.
When it comes to margins and safety and risk and things like that, what you end up doing is, you know, you're the kind of the smart thing to do is to say, okay, you know, I'm flying, and you're flying in the simulator, and then you get to a certain fork in the road where you say, okay, well, I am going at this point, I would make a certain kind of decision. I would land in a field. I would go off to the airport. I wouldn't go cross country. Whatever decision you feel is appropriate. And then you can consciously, deliberately say, at this point, at this fork in the road, I am going to persist because I want to see what's going to happen. I want to understand, you know, what would happen if I continue with this decision.
Occasionally, we would get the chance to go on a sort of summer camp with the gliding staff to a beautiful soaring site near Cheshire, the Cheshire Gorge. And we would fly quite an interesting airplane, because the cadets had a few single-seaters, and they were much treasured because there weren't very many of them. And they were called the Prefect, but they were basically Grinnell babies.
What I'm able to do, given the fact that I have these weather conditions literally in my backyard, I just want to take advantage of that. And I've always been fascinated with wave. There's a certain mystery with it. It can get real nasty. A lot of people don't like it. They don't like the cold, the icing. So there are a lot of negative things, but I see those as challenges that can be overcome. And I think given the proper preparation, I think it can be done very safely.
I started my journey in aviation about 3 years ago through gliding, but my love for aviation first came about 10 years ago when I flew to the Scilly Isles on a Twin Otter. And in the Twin Otter, you can see right into the cockpit, and there were 2 female pilots in the front, which is what I believe sparked my love for aviation.
What is a soaring safari?
Yeah, that's a great question. What is a soaring safari? We'd never done one before. So early this year, I contacted Dan and said, Dan, hey, you want to go on a soaring safari for a couple weeks? And Dan's so cool. He's just like, okay.
And so around Mono Lake, I checked the outside air temperature of the air, and it was 15 degrees Fahrenheit. And so I was pumping in anywhere from 15 to 21 degree Fahrenheit air into my cockpit for, I don't know, an hour and a half.
The virtual reality devotees within Condor, once they have got it, they don't ever want to go back to just the screens.
Oh, yeah. Obviously, I mean, I've done some Condor flying, but what type of flying can you do if you can tell others that maybe haven't experienced it yet?
Well, you can do all types of flying that you can do in gliding.
Wings and Wheels has been serving the soaring and sport aviation community for over 30 years. They hands down have the largest and most comprehensive inventory of sailplane and soaring supplies in North America, and they ship globally. Nearly everything you'll find on their site is in stock and ready for same-day shipping. Wings and Wheels is the exclusive American representative for HPH sailplanes. Be sure to check out the Twin Shark, their latest launch. They're also now the exclusive distributor in North America for the new Just Soaring Glider Sim Pro. The team has thousands of hours of flying experience in gliders and airplanes. Staffed by Adam, Kelly, Laura, and Sean. A friendly voice will answer when you call or email them. Check them out at wingsandwheels.com.
I was cocky. I probably had, I know it was less than 50 hours total time. And I saw all these good pilots getting off low and climbing away. So I'm going to do that. First bump on the toe, I'm going to get off. I looked later, I realized I'd gotten off at 700 feet. And I made one turn and it was sink. And suddenly I'm a lot lower than that. And then I made the mistake of flying a pattern, which was just the worst thing to do. And wound up having to do a slipping turn to get between two pine trees to get to the threshold. And when I landed, I was just entering a spin as I landed in a plank. Wow. And the owner of the plane said he'd never seen anyone come so close to killing himself. So I figured I better quit this while I'm still alive.
So you set it out for 2 years, and then what happened?
I saw a glider in the air and couldn't resist. I wound up flying there 16 years. That was northern Vermont.
You know, you talk about Amelia Earhart, and that's just something that you read about in history books or you see on film and movies. But now it's an actuality. Women can get out there and be pilots, and they're successful at it.
What was one of your most challenging things you found as being an instructor?
Well, I'm a teacher by trade. I was an instructor at the college level, also at training teachers. So I know a lot about how people learn. And there isn't a whole lot of difference between kids or teenagers or adults. Pretty much we all learn a lot alike. We all have different modalities. And so actually teaching the art of gliding and breaking it down into little chunks so they could learn it was kind of right up my alley. It wasn't something that I found really challenging, although it is. I mean, it's always challenging. A lot of times teachers will think that because they said it or they taught it that you should know it, but they don't check for understanding to see if they really have it. So that's what tests are all about, right? But you don't wait to test them late when you're in aviation. So you need to do a lot of that checking for understanding. And I think that's the biggest challenge to most flight instructors.
XCNav, the smart Android-based panel-mounted flight computer with the latest Sunlight readable transflective screen technology. Thanks to its operating system and touchscreen, it is capable to run different navigation apps such as XCSoar, Top Hat, LK8000, CU Navigator, and many more. A Bluetooth stick remote control that is usable with any Android phone completing the package. XCNav is also now shipping overseas. Check them out at xcnav.de.
So my advice to a glider pilot, a solo student, say, would be keep your energy up when you're anywhere near the ground. Your kinetic energy, right? When you're anywhere within 100 feet of the ground, or even 500 feet of the ground, or even 1,000 feet of the ground, keep your energy up. Because most pilots that are killed in glider accidents are killed in stall spins at a low altitude, which comes from flying too slowly, close to the ground, and having a stall that you don't have the altitude to recover from. And that's what, the airplane pancakes into the ground. So that's what kills pilots. And to avoid that, you keep your energy up. It's better to land in the trees with little energy than it is to pancake into the ground.
Hi everyone, Sergio from Soaring Master here. I was invited for an interview by Chuck and Mitch back in 2021 in the middle of the pandemic, and was later invited to have a fixed segment here to share tips and advice about our favorite sport as a free spin-off of the Soaring Master course. This experience will always stay with me. And when thinking about what to share with you guys, well, I've decided to leave this podcast with this last episode sharing the 5 best tips that really took me to a higher level as a pilot and that can most definitely help you in your quest for better performance and higher and faster goals. The first step is to study meteorology applied for soaring. Top pilots have a great understanding of meteorology, so learn how to analyze forecasts, how to compare different models, and work on your sky reading skills, and always practice identifying the energy lines while flying, even during local flying. My second tip would be for you to analyze your flights. There are many softwares available for soaring analysis nowadays, so use them and go through your flights in a numerical way. Determine the percentage of time per turning, achieved cross-country speed, the number of thermal tries, see how effective your cruising technique and thermal selection has been, and keep a track record of your achieved performance. This is actually the third tip. Keep a record of your lessons learned. They are super expensive. Do not waste them. After a training flight, take some time and write down the strongest points and the weakest ones, which deserve improvement. And don't let these lessons learned fade away in your memory. Write them down, and this would be my fourth tip. Commit yourself to continuous improvement. So take your notes and read them before committing to the next flight, preferably the night before, and avoid repeating the same mistakes. You see how fast you're going to improve. My fifth and last tip is fly. There's no better training than flying. Keep a training schedule for both virtual and real flying, and do it safely. Have safety as the first objective when flying and when choosing between the options you have at hand. Always. That's it, guys. These 5 ones were the key for me to improve as a pilot. And with that, I would like to finish this by thanking you, Chuck, for all the support throughout all these years and understanding with my busy schedules. Flight testing is not an easy business, and you are always there supporting. And so, thank you so much for the opportunity, Chuck, and for letting me be a part of this great show here. For you, my dear listener, I wish you great flights. Well, I'm gonna keep my Instagram channel live, and if you want to follow me for more tips and advice, or if you want to enroll in the next class of the Soaring Master course, follow me on Instagram at Soaring Master, or check my website, soaringmaster.com. See you guys in the next turn.
Soaring the Sky is written and produced by Chuck Fulton. Original music for the podcast was written and produced by Kim Spangler. Graphic design for the podcast was created by Zachary Fulton. Voiceover work was done by Michelle Perez.